1, 2, 3, 4.
In this podcast, you will hear Knights of Vader, Knights of Vader includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not Reagan's. We can't truly prepare for the joke that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try, so here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, canon, love they fight. I know that we are just musicians hired, and their time is up, so here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
A big thank you to An Insperiority Complex for providing our theme song. It is Independence Day 2022. My name is Zach Weber, and joining me is the Portius with the Mortius, Chris.
Happy to be here to discuss yet another incarnation of the death of the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm. And we have professional gamer Zenger?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Yeah. Happy America Day, everybody. Saluted there, too.
Yes.
Audio medium, but you better hear that salute because it was that profound.
It's like the third or fourth America Day, like after like Christmas, Independence Day, Memorial Day, and I don't know, Thanksgiving. Like I feel like Independence Day is somewhere in that like top four somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Alrighty, folks, but we are here to talk about something that Zenger has promised for years now, like something that I lambasted a lot back in 2019. I will say it is not the definitive recording on this topic because I promised Jerry, super loyal Knights of Vader fan, that I will include him in this. And Chris weirdly provided insurance with this by inviting him to the recording in the last 5 minutes, which Jerry, if you're listening to this, I did not condone. I yelled at Chris. I verbally scolded him for doing this.
He did.
So I apologize in advance, but no, I promise, Jerry, I will have you on this episode as I did roughly at this point 30 months ago. I will have you on, whether it be for Jedi Fallen Order 2 or some sort of definitive thing involving me actually playing the game within the last 3 months. But Zenger is very, very ready to talk about this game, aren't you, Zenger?
I am, and we could do a lead up to Jedi Survivor and have him on for that, like what we anticipate.
I refuse to call that game that name. That is a stupid name. It's Jedi Fallen Order 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. Or Jedi Fallen Order 2 Judgment Day.
Jedi Fallen Law and Order.
Jedi Fallen Order 2 Fallen Kingdom.
Perfect.
Alrighty, so Zenger, please tell us the odyssey that led us to this moment in time where you finally completed this game that's been out now for two and a half plus years. Keep in mind, this game is as old as The Mandalorian Season 1 is.
November of 2019 is when this game was released, originally announced. During E3 2018, more details were revealed during celebrations of April 2019. Due to favorable critic reviews and its commercial success, there is a sequel coming out, as we discussed, Jedi Law and Order SVU. I don't know what the SVU stands for in this, but whatever.
Sport Utility Vehicle?
Yes, I bought this game when it came out at Target. Why did I know I came from Target? Because I have a pop figure of the numbered sister. Second sister?
Yes. Trilla.
Thank you. Second sister Trilla. I have a pop figure of that. Me and Ellie got it. We're very excited about it. Couldn't get into it back then. Sat around. Had it on PlayStation. Sat around on there. Decided to become more of a PC gamer during that time. They had, one of the, everything's on sale. So, of course, me having a ton of Star Wars stuff, it was like, hey, we'll give you like $20. You can get Fallen Order Collector's Edition. You can also get Battlefront 2. And for free, we'll throw in Squadrons because please play that game. And I was like, why not? Here's $20. So I got them all and still did not play it. Well, New Year comes around. Friend of the show, Adam, friend of ZengThis, I don't know if he listens to this, but friend of ZengThis was like, you need to play this game. So one of my New Year's resolution, I picked 3 games I need to beat. 1, Jedi Fallen Order. 2, Chrono Trigger. 3, I think I said Final Fantasy 7, the original one, but I can't remember. So that's kind of an up in the air one. I could listen to the episode, but who would do that? So, needless to say, did I attempt to play this game? Absolutely not. Instead, I attempted to play Chrono Trigger. Then I got distracted by God of War on the PC. Then I got even more distracted by a game called Elden Ring. And my body and mind were forged in 180 hours worth of time. Forged in the fires of that game. I mean, just hammered down by Scar's Scourge Radon, by Melania, Blade of Mikola, forged in that game. Taken and, you dip it in the water. No, it was dipped in the lake of rot, and I returned from there a better, stronger individual. And now I laugh at Souls-like games because now I get hit, and I'm like, that's all you got? And so I went back to this game. So it was kind of in the same vein as the Souls games, and oh my gosh, the enemies when I appeared were like, oh crap. Because I am now forged a god in Souls-like games. Whereas in this game, you're some peasantry Jedi instead of the godlike entity that you were in Force Unleashed. Starkiller, you are somebody who actually can take damage from regular stormtroopers. It actually has to do some stuff. So dodge rolling my way through the rest of this game, I not only beat it, but I completed every single achievement on Steam and am now plowing through the PlayStation version of it. Did I like the game? Did I enjoy it? Well, we'll find out on the rest of this conversation. Zach, is that a good enough introduction?
I think so. A little long-winded, but it'll suffice.
I wanted to give everyone the journey of how I got here, of knowing that I put that much time into Elden Ring, and it has paid off in dividends, because now any of these games, it's like, this is fun. This is fun for me. Because now apparently I just can't enjoy games unless I'm getting smashed into the wall by something and just hating life. So I don't know what to do for the new Halo game now. I guess I got to play with like a freaking lobster attached to each ball and hope for the best. Just to know pain again.
Do we have to bleep that out?
No.
Chris, what is your thoughts on Jedi Fallen Kingdom?
Wow, what an insult to the game. I was just thinking as you guys were talking that like it's amazing that we had a Mandalorian season going, Rise of Skywalker and this around the same time. Like you'd think that time period would have been more memorable. I don't know. I got this one right when it came out. I played through it, and it was refreshing in the sense that the sales Zenger just mentioned, he just listed off all 3 Star Wars games that have come out in the last 12 years, and he got them all together on one sale. And so of those 3, this one's the only one that's like sort of an actual game. And
BS.
As far as like a single player campaign that is of any value whatsoever, that is not just a novelty add-on that is built of the multiplayer game types.
I call shenanigans on this. Zach, you remember the intricate and well-made story in Battlefront 2, right? I'm sure you can name any of the characters from it.
Inferno Squad, Iden Versio, some guy that's the villain. Period.
And Palpatine as a hologram robot.
Okay. Can we play?
Best
Okay,
part,
whoa. I want to pause that for a second. I will say that Sentry Palpatine, whose job it was to like global warming planets, is kind of a fun pulpy idea. No,
they did more than just that. Like they were in the books too. It's just spouting out these random ideas Palpatine had.
Operation Cinder, like that was great. Like that's something that's a weird like 2014 idea of Lucasfilm that they've completely abandoned. Like I hope for Kenobi like season 2 that there's some like remnants of that where like Basil Oregano contacts him and it's like, Obi-Wan, there's a planet that had like a delayed laser beam that tried to blow up the planet. Can you please like help them? Like that's what I want. Like Operation Cinder was one of those things that like was a major focal point of like late to mid 2010s of Lucasfilm that they just completely distanced themselves from.
No, they didn't. I call
Elaborate.
shenanigans on you now, sir. Season 2 of Mandalorian. Best character arc, Stormtrooper, Boston
Oh, that doesn't count.
McGuy-Face.
Name drop doesn't count.
Boston McGuy-Face talks about Operation Cinder.
Oh
when
yeah,
they're
a name
talking
drop.
to-
Okay, whoa. If we're gonna start counting random, just like member berries, then no, because I once said in the second to most recent Star Wars novel, Brotherhood, which Zenger, I beg you, please never read this book because it is drier than Attack of the Clones.
Okay, hold on a second.
Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
In the book the Star Wars novel I'm currently reading, Brotherhood, there is a very subtle like reference to like Anakin talking to Jaro Tapal in his redheaded Padawan, and I literally gave the novel the middle finger. I'm like, no, this is like the worst type of member berry where you just throw in a name because stupid nerds reading this are going to recognize it. But continue.
That is the only thing that got me through the phenomenal quotation fingers everywhere Aftermath trilogy was having to wait for something that I was like, oh, that's something I know about. By the way, after reading that, I know we've never done a formal discussion on it, and anyone who's read it will know this. That was an example of not Lucas, whoever was in charge at the time, taking a shotgun and just firing off into the distance, hoping that one of those things got a bullseye, because they set up all this crap that we still have not ever touched on.
But that's the thing. Okay,
they were making sure they had established stuff everywhere.
I know. And like, as much as Chuck Wendig is an insane person, he did exactly what he was told.
He did. And like I said, are those books memorable? I think Mr. Bones is like the only thing that I like from it, but I'm irritated because not only do we not get Mr. Bones in the sequel series, we get no mention that what's his face from Heroes,
Temmin Wexley
is like this great. He's just there. He's just this guy wandering around. When in the books, he's like a huge focus as like the next big thing.
Are you okay?
We will get back to Fallen Order.
Oh, fair enough. Let's go back to the actual topic and not dissect the sequel trilogy and its weird misnomers.
So, Zach, what was your impressions of this? 'Cause I think we went around the table and...
Well, no,
it's your turn.
Well, again, this goes back to I did a brief back in spring 2020 before the world collapsed, or as the world was collapsing. Again, it's no secret that in the lead up to this game, I was very, very disengaged from it. I belittled it every single chance I got. And then when I eventually played it, I was wholeheartedly enamored with it. I love Cal Calrissian. I wish they would have given him a better name. I think Cameron Monaghan is his name. I think he does a fantastic job of bringing Cal to life. I sat there much like Chris when he bought his a Salacious Crumb knockoff, whatever it's called, at Galaxy's Edge, the day Galaxy's Edge quote went live, end quote. I bought that Cal Calrissian lightsaber for $400, and now it goes for $220 on eBay, just because I wanted that lightsaber. No, I adore this game. I think, even to bring it back to its most specific points, Vader, it does more with Vader in about 3 minutes than the entire season of Obi-Wan Kenobi does. I think in that one specific moment
on you.
No, okay, absolutely disagree. Whatever you're booing me at, I think at that one moment when Vader just takes his two fingers and waves Seer away, I think that is more Vader at his ultimate potency than just watching him drag Obi-Wan Kenobi over some hot coals. Again, we should say a disclaimer. We will talk about part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and how throwing rocks at someone does not make good entertainment.
Oh, boo on you. Oh, wait, I wasn't muted.
Okay, well, I think I have to just chime back in and remind you guys that I too also think this game is really great, and it's presents itself not just in the cutscenes, but in the gameplay and the like sort of action direction of the gameplay in an extremely cinematic way, much unlike the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show. So like there's all kinds of cool stuff that happens, like that is visually evocative of some of the best stuff in the Disney era. Like Zenger, well, you'll probably remember, early on in the game, Cal's having these weird Order 66 flashbacks.
Yeah.
And one of them you sort of get transported into a Star Destroyer, and the hallway sort of you turn around and like the hallway sort of shoots down like a mile, and it's like it stretches in front of you, and like there's something, it's similar to the effect that happens in Rey's Force Vision in The Force Awakens. And it's just kind of like the fact that you're actually controlling the character at that time makes it so much more engaging than an effect that's used in a cutscene, because it's just, you're not expecting something like that to happen in an interactive segment of the game. And I just remember being very impressed by technically it's probably not an amazing achievement, but just the way it was presented, the style it was presented in, I found very impactful. And I think they gave the whole Jedi Purge in Order 66 a lot more character and weight than a lot of other mediums have lately, since it's been shown from 40 different perspectives.
And counting.
Yeah. It's, there's probably another, I'm guessing Tales of the Jedi will end up there after a few episodes as well.
It's going to end with Qui-Gon Jinn being hunted down by clone troopers.
Perfect. What is Force Ghost just going, ooh, and then running through a wall, and they all just slam into the wall after him?
It's a glorified Scooby-Doo episode.
Perfect. I love it. Can I write it, please? I think I can do better.
You have to talk to Seth Green first. He gets first dibs. After that, it's all yours.
Oh.
So when they eventually tie up Force Ghost Qui-Gon, who's actually underneath the mask?
What, they pull it off to reveal actual Kyle Cat? I don't know.
Sifo Dyas.
Perfect. Yes. Awesome. So no, I mean, going and actually playing this game, like the thing I ran into was it kind of at one point in the game gives you everywhere to go. And I just was like, oh, I have no clue what I'm supposed to do right now because I wasn't paying attention to the last dialogue. Anyways, I'll be back to this later. And I just eventually came back to it and realized, hey, I know what I'm doing now. I know how to get through the battles and stuff pretty easily now because I've gotten the hang of how to dodge roll and do all this other counter stuff, because this game's really big on if you can dodge roll and if you can counter at the right time, game becomes a cakewalk. Like super easy, in my opinion.
What do you like? I think the comparisons to Force Unleashed are like impossible to avoid, like, because I think largely because your character has a similar backstory. The combat is vaguely similar. It takes place in the same time period, like, well, sort of, and it's just obviously the Force abilities are like where Force Unleashed was, look what we can do with object physics on Xbox 360. This is not leaning into that quite as much.
No, this is actually focusing on stuff. And I mean, you can move stuff with the Force, but it isn't like on the grandiose scale of chucking an entire like squadron of stormtroopers down a hallway. It's pushing like one or two of them back a little bit, freezing one, or like it's on a scale of where Kyle Kestis is within his development as a Jedi Knight, because he's a knight by the end of it and everything. Which, by the way, quick spoiler alert for near the end of the game, that scene where he gets knighted, BA. Like, beyond BA. One, because it's a callback to, of course, the greatest Star Wars of all time, the Clone Wars series.
Yes, 2008 to 2020.
Not that one, the other one. It's a callback to that. Also, it's done with the red lightsaber, which is really cool.
If only she had given him a haircut at the same time.
Nah. It's funny. I kept realizing that there was that scar, and I just thought it was just like random pop-in not working correctly or something. And then I found I was like, oh crap, that's actually a scar on the side of his face. So
I was referencing the fact that they cut off Anakin's little braid in 2003 Clone Wars Zinger. That's
Yeah, and it was cool. It was but you couldn't do that with it because you didn't have one. It got shot off like a champ.
but you know, like the thing this game has that not a lot of the new Star Wars content has, in my opinion, is like it feels like there was some effort to like make a sort of unified style. Like it opens up with like some weird like in-universe song, and it turns out Cal Calrissian is listening to it on headphones. Like, just a detail like that is like, it's not it's sort of like the audio was first person for like the opening segment of the game. It's interesting. It's they're trying stuff. It's I think maybe what's the planet where you end up in like the arena?
Which are I'm
There's like a giant audience like surrounding you, and you fight some monsters in an arena, like sort of vaguely Attack of the Clones style. Is that ringing a bell? I forget what planet that is.
It is, but I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that same band comes back and plays a similar but different song at that stage of the game, or it's the same song again. I don't know, but it's just like there's thought put into the gamer's perspective as they move through this, and it's sort of like it's not relying that much on the cinematics. There's a lot of the critiques I heard at the time were like around some of the mechanical sort of puzzles being incredibly difficult. Like I don't know how you play. You said you played through it on PC the first time, right, Zinger?
Yeah.
And like, how did you find the on the planet where the hidden Jedi temple is, all the puzzles with like the big spheres that you have to like put on the little platforms? Like, was that incredibly annoying to do?
It was slightly annoying. It's something to where like playing enough of like Uncharted, God of War, older God of War, any of those games, I kind of pieced stuff together. The annoying ones were there was a few puzzles that if you have other abilities, you can completely solve them instead of partially solve them. So those ones annoyed me. Also as a quick side note, real quick, I will point out that the actor that does the motion capture and everything for Kyle Kestis was actually in an episode of Law and Order SVU, so comes full circle there for that joke. But it was something to where that's the thing that got me. Like, doing a lot of the collectibles and stuff was a lot easier once you had all the power-ups and could do everything. Because there was times I was sitting there stuck on something and then only realized, oh, I don't have this, that, or the other upgrade to get to it yet. So just kind of running into those walls every now and then. And by the way, if I may put one huge criticism out there for this game, fast travel system. Some kind of fast travel system. Because having to go back to a planet, especially like Kashyyyk, and go all the way to the origin tree was annoying. Though I did find out a trick near the end of that. I just didn't do any meditations, and I just killed myself and then got teleported all the way back to the beginning once I was done where I was at. See, I outsmarted it.
Were you compelled to like 100% all like the pickups and everything?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
So you did that and you actually had a good experience? That's amazing.
Yeah. It was one of those things to where once I got to actually here, I can tell you exactly how many hours I put into it now. Star Wars Fallen Order. Last played yesterday because I got the final achievement yesterday. 39 achievements. All got in 35.1 hours. The final achievement I got in the game was, hold on, I accidentally clicked the wrong button. Was not the Force Echo. Why didn't it do it in the order I needed it to? Crap. I think it was exploring. No, it was the food. It was the trees. It was the seeds, collecting all the seeds for the little herb garden thing.
Right.
That was the last one.
Yeah,
Green
I remember
Thumb,
that.
fully grow the terrarium. That was the last one I got because I had all the seeds. You have to wait a certain amount of time for that to pop because they have to be fully grown.
So did you have to like does like traveling between planets the only thing that causes time to progress for that, or like
It does. You can also just mess around and stuff. Like I just actually put my controller down, walked away, did travel to 2 different planets, and then it popped.
nice?
So
That yeah,
it might
that's
have done it before that, but I forgot to go back and check it.
That's a good point. There's a lot of those sort of ancillary aspects that I never really like leaned into heavily. I like looking back on it. It seems like like one of the things I wanted from it at the time that I didn't really get is like you have these sort of common areas where the ship lands on all the planets, and some of them have characters that you can talk to, but like you you can't. There's not like conversation trees in this game, so like the characters are like they have one or two things they repeatedly say, and then they say, don't you have something better to do? And basically there's not a lot, there's not a deeper level of interactivity there. And I feel like it could have benefited from that, even if the conversations never really led to side quests or anything, but maybe you just got a little more out of the story if you pressed for it. But then when you bring up the whole terrarium thing, like I don't know how much sort of collectibles fill that gap. Maybe they do for some people. I feel like I skimmed over that stuff big time when I went through the game the first time, and I never went back to it.
Well, it is mentioned that the ship captain, who Zack will of course input some crazy name,
Grease.
is a ridiculously good cook and is likes cooking and everything. So you building a terrarium is helping him by being able to have the different spices and stuff for making the food and everything. There is a lot of like the dialogue and stuff you can get from talking to them and just listening to stuff. And you want to know something? It's totally skippable too. You can just not do any of it and not get that aspect of the character.
Yeah, well, like you were saying, it's a pain to go back to planets. I assume you were doing that for pickups. Like, I feel like I never went back to a planet like more than was necessary for like the core story aspects.
I had to go back to one several times. I know playing it on the PlayStation, I'm going to make sure that once I get to a planet, I'm going to completely know everything I have to do on it to get it done, because having to double back for a lot of those was annoying. I know one of the hardest achievements to get, according to Steam, since I played this on Steam, only 1.8% of players got it. So, and yes, I am part of that 1.8%. It was not so fast. Defeat enemies while they are under the effects of empowered slow.
So it was like a certain number of kills.
You have to get 25. But you have to like have it to where, like, you know, there's certain abilities, like if you held down the button, it would do like a bigger version of it. When you did that, they'd be holding still, and it's the move where you go up and you stab, like you actually will just straight stab them. You don't hit them, you stab them straight through. And that's how you got. And there's really easy spots to exploit that too. There's a spot where there's like a save point, and then right around the corner, there's a squad of stormtroopers. So, like it takes no time at all to get it, if you know what to do to get it.
Yeah, well, something tells me it's really just that people don't want to like get super sweaty on the achievements where you have to do 25 of the same thing. But you know, since you have been like reading a lot of the books and following Clone Wars and stuff, I did want to ask you about one of the more core plot details of this game, where you have this whole idea of like a holocron that like lists off like locations of force sensitives. In this case, it was like a bunch of kids, but I guess they could only be so small if the list was made during the Jedi Order. And this is like some years later.
5 years.
So at the time, it seemed to me that they were sort of trying to lean into that whole Clone Wars subplot where like Palpatine had that like weird nursery, and it's like, and I feel like between that and some of the other stuff that's been going on in canon lately, I feel like that's one of the slowest burns that like, because technically that plot thread sort of predates Disney, and it's like where like they're still sort of peppering in things that relate to it, and I feel like it hasn't fully been paid off yet, like where that really ends. Like I feel like that Clone Wars episode, like you never see that area again after that one time, right?
It isn't touched on any of the stuff I've done reading wise. I think there's Vader comics that deal with them trying to, or people hiding like where all the Force, as I swear one of the Vader comics deals with that, where he fights that librarian chick.
But then you have like, you know, you have the whole thing with the Inquisitors and like the stuff from the Obi-Wan show sort of implying that like I don't know if they were trying to, I guess they weren't trying to say that those kids became Inquisitors, because Inquisitors didn't exist when that Clone Wars episode came out. But then are they still following the initial intent of that Clone Wars episode? It's hard to say, right? So
the Inquisitors have been something to where like they vaguely point out their origins, that they're like fallen Jedi or old Padawans or people that just came into it, but it's still this weird gray area of what exactly they are, because they're obviously, I think they're more glorified Jedi assassins, if that makes any sense, than true Sith. I mean, they have powers, but they're mostly trained just to kill a Jedi, which I'm like, that's cool and all, but I mean, it's something to where, like, I don't see them being even with each other. And the other thing is, playing this game at the same time Obi-Wan was coming out was a nice little unintentional kind of dovetailing of stories and stuff, which, like I said, I started playing this game again around the same time for no particular reason, but it dovetailed because of the fact that the beginning of the Obi-Wan series is kind of based around hopelessness. And this has a lot of that in it, and people trying to gather whatever they can from a broken world. Or, sorry, a broken galaxy.
And I guess, yeah. And well, I was just going to say, this sort of like, it's this, like his Cal Kestis is almost like a slightly more intellectual portrayal of what a young Jedi might have experienced than what you get in, but it's like it parallels the Kenobi series, because like Reva went through a similar thing, and like I believe you have the Kenobi's hologram like warning is at the beginning of the game somewhere, right?
I think so. It's like I said, it's weird because I played the first part of this game like in January and then finished it now with like basically zero in between. So I like got to Kashyyyk, and then from there I stopped, and then from Kashyyyk till now I played it again.
Yeah. And well, you know, there's another side note, there's another like weird parallel to The Force Unleashed, that there's just like a massive chunk of the game takes place on Kashyyyk, but
it's the go-to spot in the galaxy.
Well, yeah, it seems like there's always been this sort of idea that we're going to see the Empire enslave the Wookiees, and that's like before the Solo movie that tied strongly into the idea of like how Han and Chewie met. There was this idea that the Empire enslaved Kashyyyk, and they basically never left after what you saw in Episode 3.
And that's the other thing. In like the Thrawn books, it talks about how they enslaved them too. And everything, like it's a going thing. Like we get it. They enslaved Kashyyyk. We 100% get that. Thank you,
Zach. We were just earlier. We were talking about the sort of plot thread that is first brought up in Clone Wars about Palpatine having this like the Jedi Force sensitive baby nursery, and how that's sort of tied into slightly in this game with the sort of PDF file on a holocron of the Force sensitive children. Do you think this is something that they're still sort of building towards a conclusion on, or is the conclusion something different than it would have been if management had stayed the same since that Clone Wars episode?
Are we talking about the Cad Bane thing, like on Mustafar?
Yeah, like it literally shows like a bunch of babies, like on Mustafar. Was it on Mustafar? Yeah,
with Cad Bane. That was what, season 2 of the Clone Wars?
Yeah, that never really paid off like fully anywhere, right?
That's one where I don't know, because from what my understanding of the Clone Wars is that Lucas pretty much everything that they had mapped out they were going to do, Lucas never really wanted to go beyond 5 seasons with that. I remember even back in like 2007 and 8, he always made that abundantly clear. I apologize to the listener at home. You can, if you weren't sure that it was 4th of July, you definitely can now based on the background in my audio. Thank you, everybody. The point being is just that I don't know. I feel like from everything I've read about the Clone Wars, that was something Luke. It was just kind of like the closest we ever got to a follow up on that was from Rebels season 1, where I think Kanan goes to Hera, says something like Mustafar is where Jedi go to die. Right? Like that's kind of the closest official follow up we ever got of that notion.
So do you think like they were trying to tie back into that on with this sort of list of the force sensitive children?
I don't know. It's weird that you mentioned that because in light of Kenobi season/series finale, and that Palpatine doesn't seem too concerned about Jedi doing their thing. He's very much just like, Vader, this is in the past. Let it go already. And Vader seems very single-minded in his pursuit of the Jedi, or at the very least Obi-Wan. I don't know. I don't know what the point of the Inquisitors are. The more I think about them, they seem just like Power Ranger villains. They're just there to fight the protagonist. That's why I think Fallen Order 2 is going to be interesting, because it seems like we are very deliberately steering away from that. And that's something that Rebels post season 2 deliberately steered away from. I don't know. I don't know what the end game is. The idea of like a generation's worth of force sensitive children like itemized on a list.
Something I brought up while you were stepped out for a momentary second was the fact that I feel like the Inquisitors are more Sith assassins than actual true like Sith. Because I mean, they're just they're powerful enough in the Force to fight Force wielders, but they're not like, obviously if they went up against a true master, they wouldn't stand a chance most of the time. That's why Vader freaking smacks them around like it's his job, which it is.
But isn't the whole reason that they're not technically Sith just the story group trying to preserve the rule of two? Like that's really what it is, right? I feel like that's even why in like older games, like you know, you go back to the classic, which is that no one plays anymore because it's a 90s PC game and it's hard to play unless you like are subscribed to a platform.
Do I own it?
Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2.
I do.
They describe the in these full motion video cutscenes. They describe the dark antagonists as Dark Jedi, because even in 1997 they were uncomfortable with calling them Sith, given the larger plot threads of the cinematic films. So I think but I don't think the rule of two necessarily existed until Yoda says it at the end of episode 1. And then I don't know when the Darth Bane book came out, definitely after episode 1, but it's really that line of dialogue that establishes it. And it's purely just looking at the original trilogy.
But I read something recently that weren't Inquisitors mentioned in some sort of like publicity material, like either a novelization or something like in the 80s. Like I've heard that Inquisitors have been like not in the like lightsaber helicopter fashion that we know and love now, but I have heard that they were introduced as a thing back in the 80s, like a very, very abstract notion, but they were there.
You have stuff like Mara Jade, who's like a force sensitive. I believe she's referred to as the Emperor's Hand. I don't know what the official title is there. Maybe that's it. And I mean, what do you call that? That's going back to 91, I guess.
Looking into it right now.
Well, I don't think there's any sort of third wheel of Palpatine and Vader's earlier than Mara Jade.
The Inquisitors, also known as Imperial Inquisitors, were in the way. Was a secret division of the Imperial Intelligence. Apparently, they were dark side force sensitive agents known as Inquisitors, sometimes Inquisitors, or Truth Officers. Under the control of Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, these Inquisitors were considered high-ranking of the dark of the dark side, outranking the Emperor's Hand, Prophets of the Dark Side, and Lesser Dark Jedi.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Inquisitors have been a thing in the Star Wars universe since like the early 90s. Like that's what my Wikipedia research is telling me right now.
Same.
But it's not the lightsaber helicopter fashion that we know and love.
They do wield red lightsabers, though. There's an image where it says an Inquisitor standing over a fallen Jedi.
Okay, I found what Zach's referring to. Supposedly there is something vaguely to the effect of the Inquisitors that was created for the 1987 Star Wars source book for the role playing game. I feel
Perfect.
like a lot of, I mean, you can't really discount that because a lot of the canonical names that we know and love for the preposterous amount of background characters, like, you know, like all the Cantina aliens, how they all have names. A lot of that stuff originated with the role-playing game, and so I guess a lot of that stuff has translated. I'd be interested to see exactly how they're described that far back.
Well, no,
also,
I think the point though, Chris, and not to make this cynical and jaded, but I think it's like they scour these research texts from like 30, 40 years ago so they could just point to it and say, nope, we're being faithful. It's like a weird sort of deflection. That again, it's very intentional. I don't think any of this is arbitrary. Again, I can very easily imagine back in like 2013 when Disney is kind of doing the finger in the chest to Cowboy Hat Man and telling him to like make an animated TV show, that this is what he decides to pull from because it's the best of both worlds. He has complete creative license with it, but at the same time, he can say, well, this is faithful to Lucas's vision, even though Lucas, I would imagine, has no idea what an Inquisitorius is.
Well, I mean, he like it's clear that he understood the practical requirement to create other side villains who weren't necessarily Sith for the Jedi to fight, so that they had somebody to fight on screen. You know, that's why you have Asajj Ventress, for example, who you know, they even in the animated, the 2D series, they sort of underscore the fact that she's not quite a Sith. Like, she calls herself one, and then Dooku like quickly sorts out that situation and shows her that is not the case. So, like, you know, they like Lucas clearly sort of acknowledged that we need extra cannon fodder that have red lightsabers.
And I don't know though, but like that's the weird thing about, like, again, tying this back to Jedi Fallen Order, is that Trilla is an interesting villain. And it's the same thing that Star Wars always does, where it's no longer the villain, it's the tragic hero. Whether it be Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, it's always even, I guess, Maul would now be considered a tragic hero, so to speak, because he's somebody that just wanted peace of mind and just got severely disillusioned. But that's where I think it's fascinating with the Inquisitors, because even in Rebels, I think it's season 2, when they conclude finally kind of the Grand Inquisitor's like story arc, where Ezra and Kanan go into the Jedi Temple on Lothal, and it's the Grand Inquisitor that is like the spirit of him, I don't even know what you would call it, is what defends Ezra and Kanan from the fifth brother and the seventh sister. Like, it's his ghost that pretty much fends them off. And it's a really kind of provocative notion. And yet it's done kind of perfectly, in that it's never explained in the way that contemporary Star Wars, weirdly enough, to phrase it that way, 9 years later, feels compelled to.
But does that Grand Inquisitor ghost who defended them feel like the same dude who like mustache twirls at Reva in Obi-Wan? Like, I don't know.
It's those things where I have not watched Rebels like in a academic way in a while, so I think post Kenobi, I probably should delve into it some capacity. Oh no, orbital bombardment, Zenger, please raise the deflector shields. It's I don't know. I could see it, The Grand Inquisitor in season 1 is pretty one note. He's just kind of a dog with a bone. In this, he seems a little more of like there's flourishes to him as a character. Outside of his physical appearance, I don't really see of any sort of major continuity errors in seeing kind of like a bridge from one to the other. The fifth brother is to call him a two-dimensional character is kind. So there's no reason to believe that he wouldn't eventually grow into the character that we see in Rebels. I don't know. I think the Grand Inquisitor becomes more palatable character because of what happens to him in season 2, where he has clearly, there's something that happens to these fallen Jedi once they have passed into the living force, that they realize what they've done is wrong and they're trying to redeem themselves after the fact. And I think that is fascinating. I just wish that again, it brings back the Fallen Order and to Trilla specifically. I think there is that kind of beautiful notion that all these Inquisitors eventually find inner peace in a way that evildoers in Star Wars don't typically do, like Cad Bane circa Book of Boba Fett, or oh god, who else would it be? I'm thinking of Mandalorian. Nobody, because nobody really has been defeated in Mandalorian. No, I think there is a deeper appreciation to the cowboy hat man stuff, because it seems to be, as of now, a level of reverence for that sort of his stuff in Lucasfilm. He seems to be somebody that I guess he is the only true acolyte of Lucas, of the modern contemporary era.
Yeah, well, I mean, first thing, Zack said living force earlier, and he meant to say cosmic force for everybody playing along at home. But the only, if you need evidence that Cowboy Hat Man is like the only acolyte of Lucas, like one of the Disney galleries is supposed to be about the Mandalorian, and there's literally 5 minutes of Cowboy Hat Man talking about how brilliant the ending of the Phantom Menace is in this, and it's just Kathleen Kennedy and like everybody else at the table is just like, we're gonna just let him go. We don't know what he's talking about, but he's talking about how great the Duel of the Fates is. We're supposed to be talking about the Mandalorian. They all just like sit there and look at each other while he talks about how brilliant the end of episode 1 is. So yeah, he is that guy. It's just, what is his reach, and like, what, like he almost belongs in the story group, but like a story group that actually has power to like tell silly people that they have to structure it a certain way.
Well, I think, okay, not to bring this into like kind of like a referendum on Cowboy Hat Man, but as much as we laugh at him and we've kind of dehumanized him to that name, it's that notion of like, even Jon Favreau, I wish people would stop holding him in such high regard. This is the same guy that made Iron Man 2 and the live action Lion King. Like, this isn't somebody that we should be worshiping as a Star Wars fan. This is somebody that is extremely egotistical, that we keep, again, Chris, not to bring this back to Star Wars toys, but if we get one more re-release of Paz Vizsla, one of the most boring characters in Star Wars other than he's fat Boba Fett, we should not be worshiping Jon Favreau. Like, he is somebody that is out for a buck. Like, this is the same person that tried to redo, Jumanji with Zathura. Like, this is the guy that thought Iron Man 2 was going to destroy his career and really could not. I remember the stories back in 2011. Give or take, about reading how like Jon Favreau thought that film was going to destroy his career and could not dig a hole deep enough to try to escape the fallout of it. This is not a maverick of cinema or of ideology. As much as we mock Cowboy Hat Man, he, like Chris stated, this is somebody that during the galleries episode of The Mandalorian, really, I remember back when that first debuted, that was like trending on Twitter for a couple days, and that was kind of the main pull away. It's like, again, all these kind of third-rate cinema movie blogs are like Lucasfilm exec defends the Phantom Menace. It's like, he's not really an executive, and B, like, it's refreshing back during that time. It was very, very refreshing to see Lucasfilm defend the Phantom Menace, especially now, how many years later, where the Mandalorian is flying around in the physical embodiment of the prequels.
Yeah, you see Kathleen Kennedy look at him and she's like, man, maybe I should watch that thing.
Well, the Kathleen Kennedy's like, there's Star Wars movies before 7?
Also, I do want to point out that the sixth brother does not get, I think, any preferential treatment aside from just dying. He's the one that dies in the Ahsoka Tano book where she gets her kyber crystals from.
But what kind of alien is he?
I don't know. I can't remember. I just was trying to remember which one he was, and I don't even think they've ever shown him, like, in any other media.
There'll be a
I will look
flashback
into
in the
this.
Ahsoka TV series.
God,
we'll
I
see a
can't
digitally
wait.
de-aged Ashley Eckstein combined with Rosario Dawson.
Nope. Actually, he does appear in the Vader comics. He's the one that Vader slices his arm off, so he was meant for death.
Do you kind of, but like, is it weird to me that like it's been months since I played this, but like I'm trying not to veer into the Kenobi talk too much, but like Trilla seems like such a like more actual character than like some of the Inquisitors in the Kenobi show, and it's just like, is it because there's like more, like it's hard to sort of time out how much like acting screen real estate, and I mean, you know, they film actors for this stuff, like the characters are all based on actors, like you can tell there's a performance behind this character in the game. Maybe she actually has more screen time than someone like Reva. Like, I don't actually know. I think it's an open question. I feel like I connected more with her story because I think there's a more interesting dynamic. Like, her former master is still in the story mix of the key players in Jedi Fallen Order. So it's more interesting that like Cal's current master is her former master. And there's actually like, they have common elements to talk about, and she can reflect on what that experience was like 5-10 years earlier. I feel like there's more interesting tension between them, and they were brave enough to actually kill Trilla at the end of the game. You don't get that every day.
Well, okay, the thing I've always wanted to talk about forever, ever since playing this game, is that I think it's blatantly clear that Disney / Lucasfilm left EA alone when it came to the story of this game. Whether it be Cal Calrissian, Seer, all of them. I think even with the oh god, I forget what their name is. The religious kind of sect that's their own
Night
thing.
Sisters.
What was that?
The Night Sisters?
No, not the Night Sisters. No, oh my god, the Zeppo.
Yeah.
I think the point is that Lucasfilm very much divorced themselves from this. I don't know whether intentionally or contractually, because clearly EA has the license, so Lucasfilm can only object. They can't, unless they want to guide the path of this. I think this is the best case scenario of when Lucasfilm / Disney just leaves creative people alone. Like I said, I remember back in 2020 talking about this in the Knights of Vader Facebook group. The rhetoric surrounding it was Solo should have been the video game. This should have been the movie. Yeah. Because there's compelling characters in this that you want to see more of.
I mean, everything in this works. And the thing that blows my mind about this game is the people behind it, Respawn Entertainment, aren't like a long-lived company. To be honest, they've done games that you might have heard of, Titanfall 2, and Apex Legends. But then they did this, and Titanfall 2, and Apex Legends were all first-person shooters, so it was really weird that they got tapped for this, as opposed to... Oh, also prior to this, they did Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I mean, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare might be something you might have heard of. But they got tapped to do this while the other ones did that the Battlefront 2. So it was weird because it's like, why don't these flip-flop? But I love Respawn. I will stand behind anything they do, minus Apex Legends.
Hey, you know what? I wanted to hate on Apex Legends, but I had fun for like 4 or 5 matches, I must admit. But you know, it's almost Zenger. It's almost like a competent company is capable of emulating genres that they haven't made a ton of money on in the past. You know, it's really interesting how that works. It's like just a working understanding of what makes a good video game, as if you just literally read a textbook on it and you can actually do it. It really fascinates me that Zach's pointing out, like, like I wish we knew somebody who could like deeply elaborate on the contractual details of how the narrative gets built for a project like this, because it just makes me
real
Go
quick,
ahead.
not to do an aside on that, but I really want to. The thing is that like I think Jedi Fallen Order was kind of born out of the best case scenario of Lucasfilm circumstances, because think about it, when this game was in production in 2018, Lucasfilm was insanely distracted, whether it be The Mandalorian, Solo, The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think they cared about this. I think this was the last thing on their minds. Like even Zenger can tell you, like spring 2018, they were, oh God, Bob Iger was threatening to like literally throw the CEO of EA down the energy shaft of the Death Star. I think Jedi Fallen Order has the benefit of just being completely ignored by the multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation that is Disney. I think that's what happened. I'm, again, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I'd be shocked considering that, like, again, and we've made jokes about this a lot, ever since Disney made for the parks the official Cal Calrissian lightsaber, it means that this game's popularity has blipped on their radar.
Oh no, it gets deeper than that.
Well, but the thing that, just real quick, let me finish this thought, is that it just concerns me because if it's blipping on their radar, that means Disney feels it has to control it, which means it's going to lead to more and more problems and chafing.
So, God dang it, Zach. How do I... Anyways, so I don't know. I know you guys keep your fingers solely on the pulse of anything toy related, but I know Lego is an appalling word to say sometimes around the two of you. Did you hear what the like newest thing coming out for Lego is, like one of the like actual life size droids that's coming out?
I have it pre-ordered already.
I don't know what this is.
It's BD1. It's the robot from the game.
Wow,
like the fact that they're...
You mean it's not Lola?
Give it time. But no, I mean, it's something that I do think that this game was the epitome of a perfect situation coming together. Because EA, if anything, has done a awful job with the Star Wars property per se. I say that, and we're talking about an amazing game. Like, I will say, this is probably one of the best Star Wars games I played in a long time.
Well,
so
that's the caveat that matters, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, and what else have they done? They did
Battlefront 2015 and Squadrons. They've done what, 4 games?
And you probably completely forgot the narrative of the Squadrons campaign, and you would be forgiven for doing so. But it's filled with nonsense.
Wait. Sorry, I honestly forgot it so much that I was thinking of Battlefront 2's storyline again. While Squadrons is cool, like with the VR and stuff like that, because you feel like you're actually in the seat, it is perfectly marketed as a $40 game. It is great if you want to play a flight simulator in the Star Wars universe, but aside from that, it's $40. Get it if you want it, don't if you don't. Battlefront is a hit or miss with some people. So that's
hold on a second. Dial this back to a second for Star Wars video games. Like, as somebody who only bought an Xbox One so they could play Battlefront 2015, I get why people felt underwhelmed with that game. Mm-hmm. But Battlefront 2 has pretty much over the last 5 years become the definitive Star Wars multiplayer game of all time. Like, as much as people hold misplaced reverence for that 2005 game, 2017 Battlefront in its current state, or I'd say as of 2019, because they really haven't updated it in the last 2 years, oh God, Battlefront 2017 is the definitive Star Wars game. Like, they cleaned up that mess. And I never had a problem with Battlefront 2. Like, even like 2017 Battlefront 2, I love that game. No, like, as much as we laugh at EA, they reformed. And there's something that should be said for that. Like, there should be some level of just like accolades given to them for taking what was, oh God, what, Zenger, the most downvoted Reddit post of all time, because that means something when it comes to video game sales.
Yes.
they cleaned it up. Like Battlefront 2017 in the current time, other than the fact that they kind of just abandoned it because just it ran its cycle. I don't know. That game is great, if not excellent.
Well, my thing I was more getting on is they had the license for that time. I mean, they put out, like I said, Fallen Order, great game. Battlefront 2 multiplayer, good if that's what you're into. But it's weird because letting it be back, like everyone was begging and banging on doors for like remakes of Old Republic and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and they did Old Republic as well. But I mean, it's weird because the second they don't have the rights, all this stuff comes out. The one game by David Cage that God knows if that's ever going to come out. The remake of Old Republic, which is supposed to be out for PlayStation 5. The sequel to this game, which, like I said, I'm now very excited about and can't wait for, because who's in that tube? What is that? Is that Starkiller? Oh my gosh, what could happen? So like I said, they did okay with the property. I think a lot of people thought they were going to do way more than it when they had their exclusivity.
I get that criticism, and that criticism is not unique to you, Zenger. But like, it's also EA. Like, for the same reason why we kind of disparage Disney for not prioritizing Star Wars, it's the exact same thing when it comes to EA. Like, the Star Wars license was one horse in the stable amongst many. And that's why, like, it's so weird because, like, this was maybe like in the last like week, I really wanted to just play Battlefront 2. And as somebody who has that for the Xbox One, I'm like, I want to play this. And then, like, it dawned on me that, like, nobody plays the matchmaking anymore because it's a nearly 5-year-old multiplayer game. And it dawned on me, and that, like, think about it, the last major multiplayer Star Wars game that we've gotten is Battlefront, and there's nothing on the horizon for that. Like, there is no Star Wars, like, kind of like, what would you want to call it? Just Call of Duty, Fortnite, Halo, just like what's the word? Broad, or bombardment's happening again. Game experience, like, and it's to a point where Star Wars fans in game/media have poisoned the well so badly that, like, nobody wants to touch a first-person/third-person multiplayer Star Wars experience because of how bad Battlefront 2 was initially, and I can't put enough focus on that term, when it was released in 2017. And I feel like it's so weird to think that, like, as much as we wanted a first-person Star Wars game in 2017 and 2019, that now we've reached a point where that's all we're going to get to the foreseeable future. It's that thing with Star Wars fans where we just kind of bitch and moan so much about one specific thing that we get it, and the pendulum swings in such the opposite direction that now we kind of have to suffer the consequences of our never-ending rhetoric.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Respawn is working on, hold on, let me just make sure I get this right, on an untitled Star Wars first-person shooter game, as well as an untitled strategy game as well. So fingers crossed that I get my fix of Galactic Battlegrounds in a triumphant return. And a first-person shooter done. Like I said, Titanfall is an amazing first-person shooter. One of my favorites because Chris, I can see you nodding, and I know you're like, but Halo doesn't have you drop a freaking Titan out of the sky and then all of a sudden you're freaking punching things on a giant robot.
Hey man, like, I've played all 4 Star Wars first person shooters. It's good. I got Titanfall. I like Titanfall. I just and maybe we're forgetting as far as like because Zach, multiplayer games that you play with your friends on online services are all really trashy now, kind of like the new Halo. And I think they did.
Thank you.
I forget what studio is doing it, but you have Star Wars Hunters, which is like a Fortnite-ish like arena game.
No. We're not counting Fortnite knockoffs as actual games. We're not counting
because Zach, you can actually get Star Wars skins right now in Fortnite. By the way, my younger daughter forced me to play Fortnite with her. Like, she like bugged me, threw a controller in my lap, and was like, "Play Fortnite with me." I'm like, "I've never played Fortnite." First place on the first.
I will
match
say
I
that
played. I was like, apparently I'm just god at everything I touch.
I will say that when this podcast first started, Zenger's youngest daughter, Quinn, was 2 years old. Now she is 16 years old. She's looking at colleges this fall. That's how long this podcast has been going on.
Close. It feels like about that long.
I can't tell if that's accurate or not.
What, the sound in the background or the age of my daughter?
The latter.
Okay, good.
Okay, so it's clearly been 12 years or something since this podcast.
This podcast has been going on for 12 years, and Zenger's like, it seems longer.
By the way, the Hunters game is being developed by I don't care, it's garbage. So moving on.
Okay. Well, I mean, the marketing of that game reminded me of who could forget the classic Star Wars Demolition for PS1, where it's literally just like people gambling at Jabba's palace and having arena battles. Like, if you ever want a real trip, YouTube the cutscenes for Star Wars Demolitions and be completely confused and annoyed.
It was available on Dreamcast.
Yeah, that probably looked a little bit better than PS1. But yeah, I don't know. Like, so Zach, you're sort of saying that like
I would like to, Chris, I'm sorry. I need to correct you real quick. 2000s Star Wars Demolitions.
Okay, it's from
not to be confused with 2019's Demolitions. That is the topic of this week's episode.
Well, I mean, I highly recommend you play that game because you can ride a Rancor as Malakili, and there's rockets mounted to the Rancor's head. What more need I say? But Zach,
Game Informer, a solid 7 out of 10. Whoa!
So you're telling me this is where they got the idea for the conclusion of the Book of Boba Fett, Chris? Is this like Cowboy Hat Man, the Inquisitorius from 1987?
I'm telling you that on the cover of this game, there's a picture of the Rancor from Return of the Jedi, which has rocket launchers photoshopped onto its shoulders. But that's neither.
We can all dream, folks. We can all dream.
It's real. It's real. Seeing it for yourself is at your fingertips in the current year. But Zach, I just like, are you saying that you have a cynical outlook on the prospects of Jedi Survivor because now they know there's interest in this game? So
100%. 100%. The fact that, look in, folks, like, oh God, 5+ years since the inception of this podcast, we should all be afraid of Disney. Like, we should all just, like, it's a thing that happened ever since Rogue One, when I sat in the theater after The Force Awakens and I closed my eyes during in a galaxy far, far away. I sat there, like, said, like, please be good, please be good, please be good. No, because as soon as Disney realizes something is popular, they have to stick their fingers in it. It's the nature of the beast. It's the frog and the scorpion. It's in their nature. They don't know any better. And especially now that just they are so, I don't want to say desperate for money, but just that kind of the topic that just keeps on giving, the Galactic Star Cruiser, is like they're putting out promotional surveys trying to figure out why the $6,000 hotel experience is bombing during a recession. Like, again, this is a company that has no idea which way is up anymore. And again, is anyone's listened to this or Cinemoddities, whether it be, theme park nonsense, movies with Lightyear. This is a company that has no idea what is happening in the real world. They are very much in a very, very, dense bubble. And they just do what they want regardless whether it's good or not. I know just recently, I think it was for the cruise line, the Disney Wish, they had like a port of, keeping this in video game language, of Galaxy's Edge, and they had a $5,000 beverage that comes in the ice cream maker container. And it's one of those things where it's that they just like I get it. Every cruise hotel always has that luxury experience that's meant to be above 99.99999% of the guest heads. I get that, but like it's the idea that just Disney, this is not the same company it was Forget about 20 years ago. This is not the same company it was 5 years ago. And they're just doing what it's the definition of a bull in a china shop. They're doing whatever they want. And I think Kenobi is the clearest example of that. It's just that like none of this works. It's Sci-Fi Channel entertainment level. And it's just, you better like it or else you're a racist. And that's just again, I'm not condemning or condoning anything that internet bad people have done. It's just weird they're taking a very specific stance with this. And it's just, what is Fallen Order 2 / Jedi Survivor going to do? Because I think clearly they realize there's money there, there's potential. And the fact that this goes back to even Boba Fett syndrome. And that, think about it. Like Chris obviously is my fellow toy collector. Outside of Triple Force Friday in 2019, we have not gotten any Fallen Order merchandise with the exception of the Cal Calrissian Galaxy's Edge lightsaber and this BD1 Lego set that's coming out in August, which means they're clearly sitting on this because there is a very specific date they have in mind for future merchandise. When no news typically means that they have something in mind.
Well, Zach, you're obviously forgetting the far inferior deluxe Cal Calrissian with poncho.
Repaints by Hasbro don't count because Hasbro is cheaper than Disney. I'm not going to count them.
By the way, I never had a poncho on. I couldn't stand it in the game.
That's the lamest.
I immediately ripped it off every time it put it on there. I was like, nope.
That is the lamest costume you can dress him in the entire game.
Full disclosure, I have the poncho Cal Calrissian action figure, and I don't have the better one.
It just was so uninspired. Like, and then gonna go on a soft tangent real quick. Don't worry, I'll get there. My soft tangent is, as much as I enjoyed this game, I want to nitpick it a little bit. Every single one of the things in the game is aesthetic, which is fine, but it's when it's just a color, like, why could we have not gotten him in the Inquisitor outfit as an unlockable costume? Like, why? Why was that? It's not like it was hard to code. They had it. It existed. It was right there.
It's not like the Force Unleashed days, Zenger, where literally anything goes and you can have...
I had an orange lightsaber the entire time.
Yeah, but Force Unleashed let you play like you're like Sith, like Darth Vader facsimile, Galen Merrick, like through the whole game if you wanted to. Like, they don't play that anymore. It's all in canon, Zenger.
I just wanted a different outfit other than that disgustingly bland flight suit.
Well, if you look on modded videos on YouTube,
I can play as Kirby or something.
You can watch somebody play the whole Jedi Fallen Order game as Darth Talon, which is interesting.
Perfection. I mean, there's that. The lightsaber stuff. It would have been cool if some of the stuff added a little bit of bonuses or something, like a slight bonus, but it's all aesthetic. Plus, you can't see the thing half the time, and the other half the time, the back end of it's blown off. And then the other half of the time, you're using it just to beat people with instead of putting the actual saber out because the thing's gigantic.
Yeah, well, I remember, that's interesting you say that it's gigantic. I remember when I first played Force Unleashed, it actually bothered me that the girth of the lightsaber was clearly expanded for visual effect. Like in the Force Unleashed, it literally looks like a baseball bat, and it has a similar effect to a baseball bat, like overpowered swing on stormtroopers. But you do get a little bit of a similar flavor here. It's interesting how like how wide a lightsaber is actually just depends on the medium that you're watching it in. Like in Rebels, they're like very like thin and like needle like, and then in other things you sort of see a point. Maybe that started in episode 3 when Mace Windu's like aiming it right at the Emperor. Like, you kind of see a point on the end of the lightsaber like it's a sword. but you do see that come and go, and it's just interesting how, like, depending on the medium you're watching, the representation of the lightsabers changes.
Zach, as someone that owns a actual life like version of said lightsaber, can you use it to beat somebody?
I guess that can be said for any sort of blunt object. So yes.
I mean, this is pretty blunt though. Like I mean, the bluntest. right?
I will say that it just came as a hilt. I had to get I reused my lightsaber blade from my Galaxy Savi's experience.
Oh, it's just
So
the hilt.
maybe Zenger's like, you're just throwing words at me. Speak English.
No, I know what you're saying, and I'm like, it's just the hilt. Okay, I can order that.
Like, it's blunt. Like, it will hurt somebody if I hit them with it.
And did you use that exact same style in the game?
Well, yeah.
Or did
Okay.
you-
One thing I want to talk about. This kind of ties into
What
Jedi
color was
Fallen
your
Order 2,
lightsaber?
Jedi Survivor, and that like there is a part in this game. Like again, we've kind of pinballed all over the place when it comes to this, but I will say that there's a point on Ilum where we have
The
Eno
Ilum we must
Cordova, and he has the hologram of BD right after Cal has like his moment at his absolute lowest, where like he picks up the kyber crystal and it's just kind of a piece of ice where the light is like reflecting off of it that looks like a crystal, and he has that moment of like ultimate sorrow, and BD1 plays the hologram of Eno Cordova, which is Seer's master, and he goes through the entire thing basically kind of saying like goodbye to BD1, being like, after this I'm going to wipe your memory, you'll no longer remember me, friend. And it's a genuinely, I don't want to say heartbreaking, but it's a sentimental sequence where I know a lot of people love their Star Wars droids, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, but I've never felt that way about C-3PO and R2-D2. And when it came to BD1, back when I first played this game in March of 2020, I absolutely fell in love with him for that specific moment where Eno Cordova is treating him like essentially like this, his partner and all this, being like, hey buddy, I know this is good. I know things are going to get rough, and I want you to be aware of that, but this is not the end. You will meet someone that's better than me. And I want you to remember that when you're in your deepest sorrows, which is meant to mirror what's happening to Cal. And then when you have that moment when Cal sits there, finds the lightsaber blade, kyber crystal, and he joins the Jaro Tapal lightsaber hilt with the Seer lightsaber hilt, and he sits there, creates that double blade lightsaber. It's such a moment of catharsis and triumph in a way that is earned. And it's something that we never got from Star Wars in the Disney era, whether it be Rey, whether it be Obi-Wan in this latest series. It feels like such an accomplishment that you've climbed the summit and you succeeded. And it's so unique. And I think that was what makes the subsequent parts of Cal's journey on Fortress Inquisitorius all the more impactful, and especially his partnership, friendship with Night Sister Marin, who we've not mentioned through any of this so far in any sort of earnest way. No, that part there is so profound for contemporary Star Wars. And I would imagine that if you were able to kind of distill the specific moment where people fell in love with this game, it would be that entire Ilum sequence, because that's your emotional heart of all of it. And the fact that doesn't come easy. You have to earn that with the characters. And weirdly enough, Disney to this day, to bring this back to Iron Man, Jon Favreau, it reminds me of that sequence in the first Iron Man movie. And I imagine Zenger's probably like, oh God, make it stop. It's when, Jeff Bridges is yelling at the bald scientist trying to reverse engineer the arc reactor. And he's like, Tony Stark, do this in a cave, watch the laps. And the guy turns around to him. That eventually shows up in Far From Home, Zenger. And
sure,
he's like,
let's go with that.
Yes. And he's like, I'm not Tony Stark. And I think the reason why you get that profound Star Wars moment in Fallen Order is because these are not the typical Disney shills. These are people that are so, I don't want to say removed from the sausage making of it all, that they're able to kind of put that unique, personable perspective on it in a way that people that aren't firmly engrossed in it on a day-to-day basis are typical to what they do.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you also believe that BD1 like might have some actual risk associated with his existence in a way that you never thought R2-D2 and C-3PO were ever actually under any threat. For example, R2-D2 gets shot in the head by a TIE fighter in the original movie, and he's fine about 5 minutes later.
And C-3PO gets abused by 3 generations of people and is fine most of the time too.
He actually falls off a cliff in A New Hope and is fine.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Another thing though that's interesting, and this is a dialogue I don't know if you all got. When you're on one of the planets, it's the first one you go to, and I cannot remember any of the names of the planets, but Seer is talking about how she's never been there before. And this was his Padawan. And it's just interesting that BD-8 was something he took with him. I mean, BD-1. The robot in this game is someone he took. Yeah, there you go. Is someone he took with him.
The actor from the Jurassic World and Law and Order TV series.
Who is voiced by Ben Bird. Continue.
Yes. That he took the robot along with him. Like, it was something that, like I said, this has a lot of emotional resonant moments in it, which is something I wasn't expecting from this game, to be honest. I mean, as much as I hail Force Unleashed as like the greatest thing ever, its emotional resonance is just rage. I mean, come on. If Padme and Anakin's relationship is, what do I compare it to normally, Zach? 2 chairs stacked on top of each other?
Yes.
This is a photocopy. The relationship between Starkiller and Pilot, what's her name? Juno Eclipse?
Yes, Zenger.
Wow, dang. I haven't played games in a while. I'm good at this. Is a photocopy of a picture of 2 chairs stacked on top of each other.
Oh, come on.
That's the emotional resonance of
He's not wrong, Chris. He's not wrong.
So, I mean, and did this have some love story in it? No, it had stories about people finding each other in a galaxy that is completely lost. And that resonated with me. And it was weird because I watched it along with Kenobi, which is another story about loss and dealing with the outcomes of stuff that has happened.
Well,
for better or for worse, Zach.
There's a lot of great examples of it. Like I don't know if he's even named in the game, but like Cal's like construction worker friend from the beginning, who like,
I'm gonna call him Steve.
Yeah, like Steve is like a J.J. Abrams alien, and Steve
I beg no.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the first J.J. Abrams alien I've kind of liked, because like he's just like, he sounds like Jon Favreau, but he's not actually. And like he works, and like he's just a construction worker, and like he has a terrible life, and he's aware that like Cal's like 20 years younger than him, and it's like you know, it's such a relatable moment. It's like, I don't know, like many of you guys who have worked terrible jobs in your life, that you might have had that guy who was like, here's what happens if you work that terrible job for 35 years. You're this guy. And he's just like, Cal, you know, you might want to start thinking about your prospects as a human being outside of the Imperial scrapyard. And he ends up dead by Trilla, I think. Trilla kills him, and you know, it's just like that character does more in like 8 minutes of cinematic screen time than a lot of the stuff that that we get in other mediums. So I think it's just, there's something successful about the characters and the action direction and just the way everything's sort of structured to like it gives Cal impetus to try harder when he loses a friend like that. So it's just a friend who wanted him to go on to something else, something bigger. So I don't know, like a lot of this, I haven't played this probably since it came out, and a lot of it still stands out to me big time, which says a lot compared to other things that we're getting lately. So I'm gonna try and remain semi-optimistic about Jedi Survivor.
Well, I think my final thing on this, if I may, I'm excited for Jedi Fallen Survivor. Will I buy it the day it comes out? More than likely. Will I play it the day it comes out? Possibly. Will I pick it up? How many years, Zach, has it been?
2.5, give or take.
Yeah, 2.5 years later, actually, finally let Zach do a discussion on it. You bet ya. God dang it, you bet ya. Actually, I can't say that now that I've gotten the whole how Souls games work, and my life consists now of playing video games, not for pleasure, but for sheer pain and just terrible, terrible just destruction of my existence. I think I'm ready to be hurt again.
Hey man, I'm used to waiting 3 and 4 years between Jedi Knight sequels during the superior era of Star Wars video games, so that's not a big deal for me.
I guess that's one question I want to ask. Are we going to get Cameron Monaghan live action? Like,
Yes.
well, okay, thank you. But where does that show up? Is that going to be Kenobi season 2 part of the path? Or is that going to be in something that we just, I don't know. Where does that eventually show up?
Okay. I got this. One, which is more likely, us getting Starkiller recanonized or getting Kyle Kestis live action?
The latter.
Zach?
I don't know. I feel like Starkiller is something that they'll eventually work in. I would imagine. Well, think of all. Okay. May I please do another? Like we're gonna do an Inception and go deeper into this. Which is gonna be canonized first, Starkiller or Mara Jade?
Mara Jade.
Mara Jade, because it's the one we're not expecting. But I feel like they've set up everything for Starkiller. Like, there's so many pieces falling into place that's like, they can't not have someone named him pop in.
I feel like Mara Jade's also, like, technically canon already, no? If there's an offhand canonical mention.
Well, okay. Just real quick, because I feel like I have to bring this up for the fact that Zenger's here. That in this Star Wars Brotherhood book, there is a reference to a Jedi Council meeting, and they make a point of Ki-Adi-Mundi's humiliating defeat by General Grievous, and I'm just like, well, there it is again. Like we keep kind of beating around the bush when it comes to the Battle of Hypori. Like I don't know. Like hasn't it? Okay, Chris, you're the expert here on like 90s and 80s level Star Wars knowledge. Is it true that Lucas despised the idea of Mara Jade?
I think that's generous. I think he probably forgot she existed on a weekly basis. Like I think the famous quote from Pablo Hidalgo is that like he recalls having to remind Lucas that Luke Skywalker had children and we've written like 30 novels about them. Like, you know what I mean? Like when a new project came along, like I feel like I think there might even be an interview. I wish I remembered where it was. It might have even been an interview with Lucas about The Force Unleashed. There's some interview with Lucas where he sort of describes that like him and the movies is the father and the books and the video games are like the son, and he lets the son sort of do what they want. But at the end of the day, like it has to get like approved by him. Like so it's like he's like Lucas sort of acknowledged that like once in a while something weird is going to slip through the tracks that's in a game or a comic book or a book or something like that. So like I don't think he minded.
I just don't understand, considering that we live in the hyper girl power girl boss world that we live in. I don't mean that to be negative or derogatory in any way. And I just find it peculiar that you have a character like Mara Jade that is so primed for that audience, and they've just let that character rot. Like, that's the thing I don't understand, because it feels like a character you could do so much with, even if you were to pull them out of their Legends timeline and drop them somewhere else similar to Thrawn. I don't get it. It seems like something that would very clearly be something they could plug in. It would be decent enough, worst case scenario, story fodder, as well as win them a lot of brownie points in the current socio-political society we live in.
I think it's on the level of like, I don't know if you remember when I don't know what your mental state was when Ahsoka was like first brought into the story, but like my attitude with that was like, Anakin did not have a Padawan between episode 2 and 3. Like those movies
I was about the same with him.
Those movies take place 2 years apart. Excuse me. He did not have a Padawan. It would have like it's just, why is it not at all relevant to these two movies? And I feel like Mara Jade, if she's in a position remotely comparable to her Legends role and time period, it's gonna be I think even by their standards, tough to figure out canonically, because it's just like they've treaded that chronological zone so heavily from so many perspectives.
I don't know. I feel like
interesting.
I could be wrong, but like I still think that the Mandalorian quote unquote Infinity War is gonna be something involving Thrawn with the Katana fleet.
Yeah.
And I feel like we at some point we're gonna get Ultron Luke Skywalker mixed with Mara Jade. It would make sense that something Luke Skywalker during that time period made him jaded even further, kind of like down the path of other reclusive Jedi. It would make sense that you would need, and think about it, you could very easily make Mara Jade what Ahsoka Tano was for new Star Wars fans in 2008, Mara Jade of whatever date they decide to eventually plug this all in, mid to late 2020s. I could see her being the entry point to this.
I think it's tough just because like where she would fit the best is like Imperial perspective stuff between the original trilogy, and the comics are hitting that area hard and showing Vader and Palpatine's perspective. So it's just kind of like, where was she? You know what I mean?
So like that's a Star Wars thing that someone can be of certain importance and they're just kind of, again, it's the Quinlan Voss thing. Like, again, Chris, you mentioned it a week ago, the notion of that an extra that looked peculiar caught Lucas's eye, and now it's a character that, oh God, nearly 30 years later is being name dropped in the most sensational piece of Star Wars media of the year.
Which is so problematic because it's let's think about this for a second. Like, deep Kenobi tangent that's actually 0% relevant to the Kenobi show. But like let's think about how dumb it is if that guy in episode 1 is actually Quinlan Voss.
It is. I thought there was books or something that he's involved in that point out that that's actually him.
He would have been so helpful at the time.
Want to point out that according to the source of all knowledge, Wikipedia, only legends for Mara Jade. Sorry, everybody.
Wow!
Dash
Rendar first, everyone. Wow.
Well, Dash Rendar is mentioned in like a solo Kitty book from like 2018, so he's at least on the board.
And a certain point of view.
And he's also, his ship, or a model similar to his ship, appears in the Thrawn graphic novel of the first Thrawn book.
And a New Hope special edition, but never mind that.
Please ignore that. 501st Legion does have the costume for Mara Jade, as well as several for Starkiller. So, as always, they are ahead of the curve on pointing out the fact that we all should be dressing better these days.
Okay, check this out. I'm checking
it.
I was at a Mississauga, which is like a city near me in Ontario, Canada. I was at a toy show in Mississauga 2 weeks ago, and there was a lady dressed up as Mara Jade at a Canadian toy show. Good stuff.
Solid
Deep
stuff.
cut.
Yes. I can't remember what got us on this tangent. I feel like I was about to answer something, and I can't remember now.
Cal Calrissian good. Starkiller overrated.
I feel I resonate more Starkiller because, I mean, just rage-filled hate monster that just slices and dices through everything.
I'm joking. I am joking. I think between those two other games, that's a better story. But we're never getting back there though. That's fine.
That's what it was. Which one would appear in canon and how? I can see Cal Kestis appearing only out of just, I feel, why is everybody in Star Wars all of a sudden becoming the A-team at the end of their stories? Because
because of the Avengers.
Because that's what they're doing. They're going around. They're going to help solve mysteries or do something. What's Bad Batch doing at the end of theirs? Going around solving mysteries with a kid on board this time. At least they don't have a kid.
Bad Batch is literally the A-team, though.
This is like, I guess, what's a knockoff of the A-team?
Scooby-Doo.
That's somehow better. Oh, and that has cameos.
Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed.
I was about to say Scooby-Doo does fit because it has a ton of random cameos from people that they're like, the Harlem Globetrotters, whoa! Darth Vader's in this, whoa! By the way, great fight, even though it's not a fight. I love how you don't get to fight him because he would wipe the floor with you.
I wish I remembered who said it, but somebody once described like what Disney is setting up now in the Star Wars TV and cinematic universe as like the MCU like solo stories, and they described A New Hope as the Avengers.
Yeah, I can see that.
I found this train of thought very disturbing.
It is, because it's like the most like low energy Avengers of all time, which somehow makes it a superior product. Very interesting.
You are aware that like starting next year, I feel like Calrissian Endor is gonna be a weird kind of like pleasant reprieve from all this. And
I feel that way. Like when I look at the trailer for that, I'm like, this seems to have characterizations that make me feel like these are real people, unlike Roken.
Exactly. I think Calrissian Endor is gonna be a weird sort of just like aberration in the grand scheme of like Disney Star Wars, much like Rogue One the movie is. And then I think next year, starting with like the 1-2 punch of the Mandalorian season 3 and then Ahsoka, I think it's gonna beat us over the head with shared universe. I think this time next year, we are all gonna be rolling ours being like, we get it. You want this to be Marvel enough. And by that time, Marvel's Zenger, by this time next year, where are we going to be in Marvel continuity? Like,
who knows? Because, I mean, they're supposed to be announcing very soon, very, very soon, what the next big bad is. Who could it be? Is it Kang? Maybe not.
Thank you, Zenger, for saying Kang the Conqueror.
Yes.
Zenger, did you see speaking of the Disney Wish cruise line, that Ultron is back and we see Paul Rudd fight Ultron?
What?
Yeah, there's actual footage of like old James Spader Ultron fighting Paul Rudd, Scott Lang. It's kind of neat considering that like this should have happened like 9 years ago.
You mean Ant-Man?
Yes, it's great. It's Paul Rudd as Scott Lang fighting Ultron, like real like cinematic footage of this. And everyone's like, man, if only we got this like 8 years ago.
I'll have to check it out then. I won't check it out now because, yeah.
The point being is that I think next year is going to be a very, very firm instance of Disney just being like, let's try to Marvelize Star Wars, probably in the most egregious way since watching Rey and Kylo Ren fight like Marvel characters on the wreckage of the Death Star.
Well, I'm just excited for Visions 2. As somebody who has hailed that as one of the greatest things Star Wars has done, and you guys have shunned and hated on and pointed your fingers at, I think it will be hailed as something amazing because it actually does nothing involving continuity for the most part. So, yay, we get to play in a world of Star Wars with anime.
I will say that I have egged them on, folks, for almost a year now. Do the Visions episode without me. I dare you. And they have deliberately chosen not to. So the ball's in their court.
Or no. I took that ball and slam dunked it. Go check out. I'm pretty sure it's either a Zygnus or Zing Wars episode.
No, there's no such thing. No, what this is no fake news podcast. There's no such thing as Zing Wars.
Okay, well, go check out the Zygnus feed around. I don't know. I think it was November or October.
That's
last
a lie.
Year.
We won't have this heresy on this podcast. There
might be an episode called Visions of some sort. Just go listen to that.
No. Listen to ZengThis only when it's applicable here and there. Zenger, where are the Zengies for 2018? How about we get onto the episodes that people want to hear?
Never gonna happen.
Where's the Crimes of Grindelwald episode, Zenger? Where's the Secrets of Dumbledore? I want to know about that magic deer that picks my president.
Oh, God, don't... Allie was explaining that to me, and I'm like, is that not the dumbest thing you ever heard? And she just stared at me and goes, but I like that it involved Newt. And I'm like, God dang it, you're the reason these keep getting made.
Chris, how do you feel about a magic deer picking the president?
I watched that scene.
The wizard president.
I watched that scene, Zach, and if you'll recall, I compared it to a groundhog determining the start of spring.
I know you did, but I just, how about as a cinematic trope? How do you rate it? Like the idea of a magic deer picking the head of government. Like I just say
Yeah.
what you will about Punxsutawney Phil, he's not picking a head of state. He's just determining the weather. There's a different. There's like the weather does not make decisive political actions.
It's implicit that it's a pointless thing. Yeah, I
No,
get
it
it.
isn't. It isn't because they need an excuse for why is Newt's commander still involved in this BS. There's an animal here that he can somehow fantastic beast with.
I like partially watched that, and I remember my girlfriend told me there's complaints about this film that there's not enough fantastic beasts in it, and that's all I saw the whole time. So I don't know who these people are, but they need to like get a job and realize that there's like at least 14 Pokemon in this movie. And also, I get okay. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
I don't know. I was gonna make a small thing that I do have to say. Just like at some point, folks, I promise in the next maybe week or so, we will do a Kenobi Part 6 review episode.
I feel I'm gonna be yelling.
Yes, but I will have to say that they're like unlike other contemporary media franchises, that Lucasfilm isn't like, especially with the theme park stuff, they're not leaning into like beverages. Like as Zenger can probably tell you, and go listen to any Harry Potter episode of ZengThis, when it comes to like butterbeer and its relationship to like the Harry Potter universe and the theme parks, Disney really hasn't tried to do anything with that for like the theme parks outside of just the obligatory blue and green milk. Like I was kind of surprised watching Kenobi that there wasn't some sort of like beverage that they could plug in to like the theme parks and making it like, oh, at some point Obi-Wan drinks, I don't know, Bantha milk. And it's like,
come up with that idea yet.
Go get your Bantha milk at Galaxy's Edge for $14.99 a cup.
I don't think they've discovered that they can market that way yet.
Oh, they have. It's just clearly the market research is telling them it's not profitable enough for them.
Singer,
I honestly think
there's a whole comic book about Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I know. I saw it at Barnes & Noble once and I laughed at it and I walked right past it. I think
there's a book series too.
I don't doubt it.
Oh no, wait, Black Spire.
They tried make like I feel like Galaxy's Edge is kind of like the Mean Girls meme of like stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. It's like it's there. It's gonna make money. Just leave it alone. Let it do its own thing. I do say, and this is probably more of a Rob question, I would imagine Disney has to have like an actuarial algorithm that they plug Star Wars ideas and concepts into, and it probably spits out a percentage as to whether it's profitable or not. Right? That has to happen.
I 100% know exactly what this does. You plug all that in and it spits out a comment thread that is unreadable to the average person because it is that toxic.
It's just a bunch of slurs with the occasional Star Wars like Wikipedia article entry.
Exactly. And they're like, well, obviously this franchise is doomed itself.
It should be stated just real quick to kind of conclude the Jedi Fallen Order discussion that the fact that we got a BD droid in the Mandalorian season 3 pilot, I think just goes to prove that Disney clearly knows that there is money to be tapped from this tree.
Perfect. And since I get the sense since I get the sense we're winding down here and talking about Disney and money being spent on Disney Star Wars, I just noticed something that this is something I got to share this before we close out. It's something I picked up at Star Wars Celebration, and on the subject of Disney knowing where money can be tapped, I spent more value on this than any sort of contemporary product where Disney actually collected my money, and it's a crew ticket to the premiere of Attack of the Clones, where in 2002 you could go get lunch and hang out with the crew for 4 hours and watch Attack of the Clones on May 11th, 2002. And it was
what a time to be alive as Zenger proceeds to die laughing.
And it was at the Fort Mason Herbist Festival Pavilion in San Francisco, and I traded it to Duncan Jenkins, who, if you know who he is, you know who he is, like top 3 Star Wars collectors in the world. I traded him some rare Canadian comic books from 1983 for it. And that is about the nerdiest thing I did at Star Wars Celebration.
I'm going to explain. Sorry, finish. Please
Disney,
finish.
I'm just saying Disney got no dollars out of that exchange, and it brought me a lot of joy. That's all.
What brought me a lot of joy is just thinking about the person who had that ticket at said luncheon and being like, I really want to talk to George, but he won't leave the buffet line. You just hear George in the background going, oh yeah, can I get some more crepes over here on my plate, please? Like,
I think that's okay. That's funny, but I think this is more accurately from someone who decided not to go.
I'm just saying it would just be great to where it's like these people waiting to talk to George, and it would be a great, once again, Robot Chicken sketch of these people waiting, and you just hear George in the background just randomly talking about the food available.
Like it's got a lovely picture of Anakin and Padme and on the lake, and on the back.
Wait. Was he talking about sand in that scene?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that is the infamous scene.
Perfect.
And it just says luncheon ticket on the back. Perfect.
God, I wish I could know it was served there, just so I could know what George was like. I mean, this isn't as good as the great walk down by my local pizzeria that I also go to as well.
Yeah, and we
George
had another
is like 100% less Jar Jar tongue lollipops.
Thank you, Chris, for something that had no reason to make me laugh as hard as it did.
Yeah, it was whatever luncheon it was 20 plus years ago. I'm sure it was great, and I'm sorry we couldn't be a fly on the wall to hear what Lucas was saying. But that's all for me.
So what are your ideas about the future, Mr. Lucas? Well, I just really wish I could have gotten a second plate of, oh, wait, I can get back in line. Please end this.
Zenger's making himself laugh. Oh, dear. I don't know for Jedi Survivor. Like, what is there? Like, I'm cautiously optimistic, but everything I've seen is just making me very, very hesitant toward it. Like, obviously, like Zenger and Chris, I will buy this first day, no questions asked. But I am very cautiously optimistic. The fact that as Zenger can tell you, a video game coming out in March is never a good sign. That is a rather lackluster time for a game to be released, isn't it?
January's worse. January.
All right, so it's bad, but just not as bad as it could be.
It could be a lot worse. It could be. March is kind of a weird time to release a game, but I am thinking of a few that came out in March that I can't think of names off the top of my head.
Zenger, do you if you have a video game that you have a feeling is going to be a home run coming from a AAA developer, do you release it in March?
You release it in November.
Exactly.
You release it in end of September, beginning of November to get on the holiday hype train. You release it in March was really big for the God of War series because they played up that whole March, vaguely related. Isn't that when Aries signs and whatever, or Taurus or something?
Ides of March?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that too, even though that was more Caesar. And Stabby. Oh, God of War Stabby. I know March was bigger for those for some reason because I know this because my Facebook feed during March, my flashback, because I did God of War quotes starting on the 1st all the way to the 15th, back when the game came out. My Facebook friends loved me for that. It was great. But so every March, I get these like, remember 10 years ago when you said this? I'm like, oh God, it's March again. So, I mean, it's an up in the air thing. January's like the worst because it's like, why didn't you just move it up 1 month? Like, why? It is a true dead spell. Also, summer's kind of a dead spell for games too. Sort of. I mean, I can't think of a game that came out recently that's like gangbusters. I mean, the Turtles Shredder's Revenge, that beat 'em up just came out, but I mean, that's kind of a it's not for AAA. AAA is like spring and fall, with an occasional blip here in winter or summer. So March is a weird time frame. It gives them the chance to push it back to a more desirable point.
So I guess my final question is, before we wrap this up, do you honestly think they'll release this game in March, or you think it's just a way for them to punt it like another 6 months down the release calendar?
Due to the fact that this game's coming out in 9 months? If I'm doing my math right.
Well, that would put it around
8-9 months, give or take.
That would put it around the time of next Celebration.
Which I'm skeptical because all we've gotten is a release trailer, and that's it. I mean, I'd like to see a little bit more. Like, there's games that were announced years ago with a cinematic trailer thing that took years to come out and everything. So I'd say they're getting in punt formation for this, but they might try to sneak it to a first down if we're going to continue with football references.
They could always pull. I was just going to say they could always pull a Battlefront 2017 and just essentially recycle the game mechanics and just give it new levels.
Zenger, for the audience at home, Chris, how would you describe Zenger's body language right now?
He's not sure. He thinks it's a possibility.
He is physically waffling. We should note that. He is waffling in real time.
Because I don't want him to do that, but at the same time, it's what they're probably going to do.
I think the best part about that was Zack unmuting for a few seconds, and you could literally hear crickets to my response.
It's either that or the orbital bombardment.
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
There's no between.
Yeah, we're coming up on 2 hours here. I just wanted to say one last thing. For those of you who are, who pay attention out there, we did have a Lucas sighting this week. He was hanging out with Denver Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson. Russell posted an Instagram picture hanging out with Lucas, and he's doing his patented, I know a photograph's being taken of me, but I'm going to look as unpleasant on my face as possible at the time. Like, when every time he was photographed with Bob Iger at Galaxy's Edge, he made sure to look like he was in discomfort. And he does that again here with Russell Wilson.
Oh, I got to see this picture. I want to have a feedback on this picture.
Well, Zenger is looking this up in real time. Like, if you were to talk to Lucas, how do you, not bring up anything that's happened in the last decade to him? Like, how do you not ask him, what do you think of The Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, or The Mandalorian, or Big Whiskey? How do you not? How do you keep it solely to, Clone Wars and, earlier content? It would kill me.
Oh, no, it wouldn't kill me. I'd just immediately walk up and be like, why'd you uncanonize this, you freaking hack? And then start beating him up.
He wouldn't remember what 2003 Clone Wars was, probably.
Exactly.
But he pops up on Mandalorian sets. That's an iconic photograph of Lucas throwing his head back and laughing with Ahsoka Rosario Dawson, Zack.
Fair enough.
Why am I not finding this?
Russell Wilson, Denver Broncos, George Lucas, Melody is also there. It's a good picture where Lucas looks annoyed, and he's not wearing plaid of any kind. It's crazy.
What? I don't believe this photo. Then
you could find it in the Knights of Vader Facebook group posted by me.
Oh man, but how do I narrow that down? Wrap it up while I look this up.
All right, we're wrapping it up. All right, so conclude this episode of Knights of Vader, a Star Wars podcast. Check out the Facebook group. Type in Knights of Vader into Facebook, and you will find us there waiting for you. Instagram at KOV Podcast. Find out what shenanigans the Porteous with the Mortius is up to. Also, I want to thank everybody who has given us a 5 out of 5-star review on Spotify. We currently have 10 reviews. That's phenomenal. That's more than I ever thought we'd ever get. So to everyone who's already rated us, I certainly appreciate that, considering that it won't let you rate a podcast unless you've actually listened to it. So again, kudos to all of you that have listened and rated us that highest score. We appreciate it. And by all means, just have your friends, family, make them listen to it for 10 seconds. That's all it takes. And then just give us that star rating. We will love you forever. For questions, comments, concerns, or snide remarks, feel free to contact me, Zack, on Twitter at Cinemoddities. You can also find me on the Cinemoddities podcast, where Rob and I may or may not be talking about the movie Roar, depending on what Rob's mood is when editing it. This month on Cinemoddities, we're supposed to be talking about movies involving legendary accidents on set. The first film was Roar, starring Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith. Second film was Jimmy C's The Abyss. Third film is the John Landis horrific nightmare of the Twilight Zone. I don't know what's currently happening with that, but look forward to it if it's actually out by the time you're listening to this. But when you're not listening to Knights of Vader shenanigans, Zenger, what's going on in the ZengThis podcast? Can I already pre-book myself for the Thor Love and Thunder discussion, or is it too early to call dibs?
It's not too early to call dibs at all. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of me seeing that. By that, I just mean I need to buy tickets. So that's the complex logistics of that. We are continuing our trudge through, actually not trudge, that makes it sound bad, our quest through the Avatar Airbender Nickelodeon series. We are almost finished with book 2 and moving on to book 3, as well as our in-depth look at the world of Vox Machina for the Amazon series. So not movie focused at the moment, but definitely focused on some animated stuff. So there's
cool.
That. Yeah.
I don't know what any of that meant, but it sounds neat. Chris, what are you up to in Canada land?
I've heard of anime, but anyways, you should definitely go ahead and follow me at the Chris Porteous on Instagram. Since 10 people actually gave us a Spotify review, I'm sure at least that many of you can follow me on Instagram. And while you're at it, follow at KOV Podcast on Instagram as well, so you at least get a heads up when we post a new episode. That's all from me.
Cool. Alrighty, folks, good night, but not goodbye. And as always, may the Force be with you.